Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the podcast show here on Reborn. Today, you and I will be discussing with Sister Jessica from Germany. She has a background of a Western lifestyle, but partying and drinking. But today, she's a Muslim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Jessica, how are you doing there in Germany?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. My name is Jessica Urban. I was born and raised in Germany. I grew up in a pretty liberal family. We weren't really religious, even though we followed the cultural holidays such as Christmas and we did birthdays and all those things, but not really, I didn't really have a religious upbringing. I wasn't going against the law, but then obviously, as a teenager, you try to explore stuff, you do stuff which you're maybe not supposed to do. So I sort of, I went off the track a little. I was partying a lot, it's a big part of my culture, I'm from Germany and especially in the south, in Bavaria.
Okay.
People drink a lot. Beer is a massive part of our culture. It's perfectly normal to drink it at 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning,
Wow.
People
It's like drinking
outside
coffee.
in beer gardens and have that with their sausage breakfast. So it's not a big deal. It's not frowned upon, and beer breweries are big here. So in fact, you're even allowed to drink beer from the age of 16, and then liquor and harder spirits from. Of course,
wow.
because it's part of the culture. It's also not really a big deal if you do it from young age. It's part of a clique. You're part of a community where you just fall into those things.
You have to do it then. If you're not doing it, then you're an awkward person in the society.
Yeah, exactly. So I've done the same, and I grew up that way. And I used to weekend came along, and it was basically wajib. It was compulsory to now hit the clubs, and
Wajib. It's
in that part of
it's
my
fun
life,
to go for.
So yeah, I mean that's how I grew up, and I later then moved to the United States, where it's
Okay.
also a big deal going out. And then when I came back, I
Wh-
studied in Germany for 2 years.
Okay, when you moved to the US, to the States,
Yeah.
were you a Muslim or not yet?
No, I
Okay.
wasn't. Yes, I wasn't. That's what I've done after high school. I just went there for 1 year as an au pair. So I lived in Chicago. First
Okay.
time away from home, huge city.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I mean, it was a great experience. But of course, so religion was not part of that whole process.
Okay. About the culture there, I mean, how is the religious social interaction there? As you mentioned, the people there are where you're from. They're not actually into religion, but they are agnostic, or they're just going with the flow of what people are
Well,
doing in general.
Yeah, I suppose. Yes, religion is a big deal. There is Christianity here, which is being practiced widely. There are crosses hanging everywhere. We have so many churches, like we have masjids in Malaysia, really on every corner. They're
Yeah.
beautiful inside and outside.
Yeah.
The bells are ringing every 15 minutes, and depending on the time, also at every full hour. So it's a big part of our culture. But I suppose it's more like you do what you like and you do what you want, and then on Sundays when there's
just go to
service from
church.
9 to 11, you go to church.
Uh-huh.
Compared to Islam, where
Yeah.
Islam is a way of life. Like from the time we get up, the way we wash ourselves, the way we
Exactly,
clean ourselves,
exactly.
the way we
Yeah.
eat, the way we drink, the way we dress, everything is part of the religion.
True.
Versus here in Germany, Christianity is sort of, that's religion and that's culture and your normal life,
If are there people right now, or when you were young, before you found Islam, that their mannerism or the culture in terms of the akhlaq towards their neighbors and one another is acceptable?
I mean, it's different in every culture. I wasn't, maybe at that time, I wasn't really paying attention too much because I was young and I was a teenager. So I wasn't really paying attention to how are people treating their neighbors, because it wasn't part of what I focused on at the time. And yes, people generally believe here that you need to be a good person. Like you need to be a good person. But who defines good? Who
Yeah.
defines what is good and what is not right, right?
Yeah. Okay, you were a teenager at that time, and basically, as you mentioned, you had no your family upbringing was just liberal, surrounded ideologies and so forth. So you had no religion indoctrination. Hence, how did you actually manage to flip on the book of Islam and find this love towards a religion of peace?
Okay. Well, in my early 20s, I moved to London. So I lived in the UK.
Okay.
In London
So you
for a
travel a
while.
lot then.
We go on holidays a lot. We travel a lot.
Okay.
Like we don't like to stay in one
One.
place. So I then moved to London at the
Okay.
time, and I worked there as well. So it was again part of the culture and part of what we used to do is that Fridays after office, you go to the pub when you don't remember how you got home.
Okay.
And after a while, I thought time just goes by so quickly.
It's fun.
I just work, then there's the weekend, work and weekend, and I was starting to think, what is the main purpose of life? Am I just
Wow.
to this?
When was that
Or,
actually? When did you ask yourself?
um, uh, maybe around 24, 25, I
Wow,
started questioning. And at the same time, also, then my grandmother passed away. She was in Germany. She was already elderly and she suffered from leukemia. So when she passed away, I traveled back to Germany to attend the funeral.
Okay.
And during that funeral, also, I wondered now, where is she now?
Going.
Is death really
The
is
end.
it a better place now? Is it the end? Exactly.
Yeah.
Is all her pain and suffering gone now? Is she still there? Is her soul still around? Those questions I had. Is it just all black or is there something else? So that's when I started to look into a religion. And because, Islam, I had a few Muslim friends, but I thought they were
In
pretty
Germany
liberal.
or
So
in London? In the UK.
in Germany, in the UK.
So
And,
in the UK, you were actually having while you're working. That was after you graduate from college and you pursued your
exactly.
profession
After
in.
my studies also, that's when I then lived in London and I had a few Muslim friends, but they weren't really strictly practicing, except maybe, well, you don't eat pork.
Okay, that's
That's
the
pretty much.
that is the limit where people say, okay, I don't eat pork, but I drink alcohol maybe.
Not everybody, but there are definitely
I understand.
communities,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
especially if you grow up in the West, that's just it's you're being shown this all the time.
I
So
remember
it's really
actually one. I remember this kind of ideology or method or the mindset that if a person, for example, a sister, where I grow up, if a person has reached the age of puberty and then they grow up not wearing hijab, and then we ask the question of, okay, you're a Muslim, why aren't you covering your hair? Said that the hidayah has not reached my heart, so I pray 5 times a day. I do good, I smile, but this thing, hidayah is not there. So this kind of mindset is not is what you mentioned. They don't eat pork, but they date, they do other things which are Islam prohibits, in that sense. So from there, your friends, do they have any influence towards your shahada, towards you taking that shahada?
Definitely they did. Definitely they did, and I have to say that maybe it was a good thing that they weren't so extreme. No, not extreme. I don't want to use this word, but they weren't so strict in their practice. Because if they had been so strict, they probably wouldn't have interacted with me in the way that they did. Then they probably wouldn't have spoken to me. Or would have met with me, So, and maybe I would have been put off because the lifestyle I was used to was definitely not liked it. So because there was a balance, I was able to question things. I was okay to ask more and to find out more. And one of these friends, he also gave me a Qur'an. I started reading it every time I sat in the tube on the way to work. I started reading it, like a book almost. And I highlighted a few things that I was curious about, things I had questions about, and then he brought me to a more knowledgeable friend that could explain those to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I want to ask you on this topic of when you shared about your friends you are working with, your coworkers or your colleague. They're not strict, as you mentioned. How is that impact towards actually reaching young people such as me and youth and so forth? When you find people want to interact and they're semi religious, or they're like that. What would you say? I mean, how do you actually advise those people who are religious and semi-religious to reach to person who has zero information or wants to know about Islam, Allah, and so forth?
Yeah. So I mean, once a person already has the desire to find out more, then I guess it's important that you reach out to the people that are knowledgeable. If you now reach out to the liberal ones,
Oh,
they will not be able to explain to you properly, and they will show you and give you examples that doesn't portray Islam.
True.
So you will actually be misguided, even though they might not intend this, you know? So actually, what I've also learned in my transformation is that you need to learn from the sources, also from Qur'an and Sunnah. You need to speak to people that are knowledgeable in that regard, and people that are versed in explaining those things to, reverts or non-Muslims, not the ones that are more qualified in teaching born Muslims. You need to speak to those who can understand you. Maybe someone with a similar background that knows the West. If someone's never been there, they will just be like, this is haram, this is haram, this is haram, but they wouldn't understand where we're coming from. Why do we question certain things? So that's why if you look at Muslims, then you'll be like, oh, but this lady is not wearing hijab, so I don't think it's compulsory wearing it, but she claims to be a Muslim. When I first started practicing, I looked around. I was in Malaysia at the time, and I looked around at the women, and they were wearing jeans and t-shirts. So I thought it's perfectly fine to wear a t-shirt and jeans. Or people said it has to be long sleeve. So, but I didn't know that, so I bought long sleeve things, but they were skin tight. And I didn't know that it had to be loose and all those things, because I looked around me and I looked at the people, and they obviously didn't portray the real Islam and the real practice.
Exactly. So on the route of you knowing Islam from your colleagues in London, you read the Quran while you're on the tube, you mentioned, on the train or the metro. And how did it click on your mind, your heart, to move further?
It didn't at first. Actually, the funny thing was, most of the time when I was out in bars and clubs, that's when I started to talk about religion.
In the bar?
When I was intoxicated, I started to, think about it more, strangely enough. That's when I always felt like, I want to know more. I feel like, maybe it was a sign at that time already that, why are you doing this? And now you're obviously starting
you're self-conscious. I mean, your conscious is actually speaking to you,
Yeah.
This is not you.
And I didn't feel so happy anymore. I got home at night, and sometimes I couldn't quite remember how I got home, and I was just laying in bed thinking, this is not the purpose of life.
Wow.
This is not why we're here. And in fact, I was reading about Islam and questioning and asking for at least a year or maybe a year and a half before I decided to actually become a Muslim, because I thought, now I can still eat pork, I still can go out, I can still do this and can do that, because it's not haram for me. It's not a sin because I'm not a Muslim. But if I convert now, then everything will be counted against me, and then it's basically then I'm doing a sin. So I'd rather delay it so I can still do those things.
So the things, actually you've processed the information, and you were just worried about, I can do the don'ts and the do's and the don'ts. So you delayed that.
I was afraid, and I sort of delayed it because I thought, if I wanted to be ready, I just wanted to be ready to give it all up and then be a good Muslim, But people, like this one brother, he was telling me, it will come slowly, If you just take the Shahada first, and if you still eat pork, slowly reduce it, Just you become a Muslim and I still eat pork, then that's just wrong. You can't do this. So I delayed it a little bit.
Okay.
And then there was also an important decision that I made in my life is when I quit my job, and I said I wanted to go backpacking. I wanted to go traveling. I quit my job. I packed my backpack. I gave up everything, canceled my phone subscription, everything. And I just booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going traveling now.
Wow.
So those people were saying, no, if you go there, you're going to go back in the same old trap. They'll be partying there. They'll be like naked on the beach, drugs, you can't go there because it's not good. And I said, no, I'm going anyway. And I thought, as a sort of life insurance, I'm going to become a Muslim first, because the minimum criteria to make it to paradise after death is that you are a Muslim, that you accept Allah as our Lord and Prophet Muhammad as our messenger. So I thought, okay, I'll do this in case something happens to me, So I have this insurance. And then I went to Bangkok, and I went traveling in Thailand, and where I then traveled to Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. I traveled to Southeast Asia, and that's how I came to Malaysia also.
Whoa, okay. So
yeah.
I don't want to stop you there, but I want to know how the flow of you actually reaching Islam. But it's a very interesting story. So I want you to continue right now. Okay, you traveled the whole Southeast Asia, including, I believe, Indonesia as well, Singapore and so forth. And then you stopped in Malaysia. So
I started in Thailand, and then Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. Then I came to Malaysia. And
Okay.
because the Malaysia was a Muslim country, I saw masjids everywhere. I heard the adhan, and I
Okay.
saw Muslims, and I was so touched by that. I wanted to go inside a mosque, and I had not even put my second foot in, and I started crying already. I
Wow.
was so emotional when I heard the adhan, but unfortunately, I had also a little bit like a not a bad experience, but a disappointing experience that I wanted to go to a mosque and I wanted to say, I want to learn more about Islam. I want to seriously become a Muslim. I want to practice this,
Yeah.
And I reached at the gates and then they told me it's closed. Come back tomorrow. Visiting time is over. And it was just Asr Adhan, so they were closing for the Muslims to come pray, and the tourists were no longer allowed in.
Okay,
So now in
that's
my heart, I was a Muslim already, but now I didn't look like one, I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
dress like. So they didn't allow me in, and they told me I must come back tomorrow. So I stood there at the gates, like, looking through it. I was holding onto the gates, looking through it, crying, and there was this guy selling books. And he told me, what's wrong? And then I said, I think I'm a Muslim, but I want to come in. And now they're
Wow.
telling me visiting hours are over. So he gave me a chair, and, then they suddenly spoke to someone, and then they led me back in and gave me some more information.
So
But,
finally they let you in.
after that, they let me in and
Oh,
someone
after
spoke to
all
me.
of that dramatic, the tears, and then they understand. My goodness, I think that is
Yeah,
one point that I think all of us should actually have this feeling. I was in a masjid in KLCC, Masjid Shakirin. I believe I was there during Ramadan and I saw two brothers. I'm not sure if they're non-Muslim, but tourists. They could be tourists. They came in with their short pants. So as for me, it's fine. The house of Allah is for people to actually come and see what the Muslims are doing. So I wouldn't ask them to go out and get a lower garment to cover themselves because they don't know. They have no information. Hence, a brother came. Maybe his intention was sincere and he wanted to advise them to get the lower garment. So both of the after that, I didn't see none of them, and I didn't see both of them inside the masjid after the brother confronted both of them to go and get the lower garment. So it's a very unpleasant way of actually reaching out to people, and that experience actually those who are watching this video should actually learn and to approach new brothers and sisters or those who want to know about Islam at least in a very beautiful manner. Allah has already mentioned this in the Quran. "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'idha." With wisdom and also with constant reach, so that the heart can also soft. So that brother, where's that masjid? Do you remember that masjid?
This was the Masjid Jamek in KL, but the same happened to me in Masjid in Singapore. They also didn't let me. So
Wow.
this twice this happened to me. And if it wasn't for Allah still guiding me towards
Allahu
those
Akbar.
places, I probably would have given up. If you just
Alhamdulillah.
if the doors just closed like that,
Wow.
and people don't let you in, and you get hidayah to go to those places. Maybe that's the end of it. You don't want to come back. But this is not the Muslims themselves. This is maybe the authorities. This is the rules because, of course, Muslims want to come pray. They don't want to be surrounded by tourists. So I understand why this is being done. I had a sincere intention, but, maybe people didn't know that. So it is always important that the doors stay open for anyone that wants to come,
I'm
whether
with
they
you
want.
with that.
In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was someone that urinated in the mosque.
That is a
He
perfect
didn't
example.
even get upset about this.
Exactly.
Imagine someone came and that was no one would dare to do this today. Hopefully, but it happened then, and he was the one that calmed the companions down.
To let you
Nowadays
done
we
with
want
it.
to come in and we have questions and we get the doors get shut in our faces. And
Subhanallah.
for example, churches, it's always open. Whether you want to come in and visit, whether you want to do a silent prayer, whether you want to attend the service, the masjid should be the ones with the door open 24/7.
Exactly. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah,
Allahu Akbar.
people to come.
I think those who I hope that those who are watching this video and listening to Sister Jessica should actually, if they can reach the masjid and share this information to them, that the masjid should be open, because we are living with non-Muslims as well. Even in Southeast Asia or where we are, we have non-Muslim neighbors as well. So we have to show them Islam through our akhlaq and also the way that we deal with them. So that Masjid Jamik, so that brother invited you for a discussion and talk, and he gave you a book.
Yeah, no, he didn't give me a book, but he gave me some more information where I could reach out, to if I had more questions,
Okay.
because I said, where's a place where I can actually learn
Mhm.
and just sit in from like 9 to 5 and attend classes, But at that time it was difficult for me because most of the stuff is in Malay, which I didn't speak.
Oh,
And
okay.
things just turned out that way, that I got connected to a English-speaking community with people teaching, and there were classes. Al-Kawthar was operating. I
Oh,
was
so you
able
found Al
to.
Kauthar then? By
Yes,
then?
yes.
Okay.
Actually, I got an email from someone in the UK that told me that there is this
Of course.
conference or this event happening in KL over the weekend, and they give free seats to Revert. So I attended it, and that's how I got connected to a English-speaking community. Also, because someone spoke to me, and then I
Okay.
started working with Mercy Mission at the time, and they were like.
Okay. About before that, how did you actually? When was the time you took your shahada? When was that beautiful
uh,
moment?
Technically, I could say I did it twice. Once
Yeah.
before I stepped on the plane.
Okay.
But
That because your heart was
my Shahada,
already
I
convicted.
had no knowledge. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know anything. I didn't
Exactly.
know that eating for me, not eating pork was the end of my knowledge, really. I mean, it was very limited. So when I went to Bangkok, I said, "Is this pork?" And they said, "No." Okay, give me the chicken. But the
Okay.
chicken was also not halal. So I
Yeah.
didn't know things. And
Yeah.
then I tried to pray, and I didn't know how to pray either. So I had some funny stories there. Also, I was sharing a room with girls I traveled with, and they
Oh.
were outside, and I was in the room, so I didn't know about wudu, I didn't know about ghusl. I just sort of covered, and I stood there, and I tried to pray, and then she knocked on the door, and she asked like, "Are you praying?" And then I just like, "Yes, I'm almost done." I mean, I spoke in my prayer. I didn't know
I'm
any
almost
of that.
done.
Yeah, exactly. So this and many more funny things happened, and also the times I got wrong. I thought it had to be during sunset, but it had to be after the sunsets. I
Yeah.
didn't know any of that. So I straight away sort of swayed away again, and I couldn't practice Islam properly because I didn't have the knowledge. So I got back into the old. But then once I came to Malaysia, I said, now I want to do it properly, and now I want to give it up, once and for all, and I want to focus, and I want to change, and I want to embrace this new way of life, like 100%. And then basically I said my Shahada again in Penang with someone witnessing there, and they they recorded the whole thing also, and then
Oh,
then
you
they
took your
they
shahada in Penang then?
yeah, that I took my
Wow.
Shahada in Penang, with IPSI as an organization there. Brother Haji Kamarudin is leading it. He was the
Wow.
one that I did
Okay.
it with, the one that
Okay.
helped me out there.
So
And
your shahada was taken in Malaysia in Penang, and then
yeah,
after that, their journey of seeking knowledge and understanding and getting to know better of being a Muslim started from there, from that
exactly. Then
organization.
then
That
I learned how to pray. Then I learned how to take wudu. At first I just went to the mosque and I thought, okay, if I go during the congregational prayer, I just do what everyone else does. And I
okay.
I went inside, and I didn't know that you had to stand in one stop. So I stood behind, and the sisters in the front were lining up, and they told me like, come. And I thought, no, I'm good here. I checked from behind so I can see. And then they insisted, so I had to come to the front, and then I stood there, and then like, are they moving already? Okay, and you couldn't see under the telecom, what are they doing with their fingers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Taking wudu.
Subhanallah.
I think I was wearing mascara or something at the time, so I was like, oh no, I have to do it around it so it doesn't get smudgy. There was a lot of
It was.
hiccups
I
at the
mean,
time, which
I
was
mean, that's a journey. I mean, all of us also went through it. Even born Muslims who actually, just because they're born Muslim, they might live in a very semi-religious family or not even a religious family. They just pray 5 times a
yeah,
day. They know that Ramadan you have to fast, and you could smoke, you can go and party, you can do things, and death comes, and that's it. And they make the same supplication. Allah will forgive you, bless him or her in the highest level of Jannah. But not knowing that they have to actually prepare a whole paddy field of good deeds and also seek Allah's pleasure. So from Penang, how did you continue?
okay. Well, as I said, I attended an Akaltha course, which I
Okay.
was like really astonished. I mean, I attended it. It was Sheikh Yahya Ibrahim at the time who was doing the heart therapy
Yahya
course.
Ibrahim, mashallah.
Um,
When was that?
and
Was
I
that
met
2000?
2012. Oh,
Wow.
or was it? Yeah, it was 2012, I
Mashallah,
think. Yeah.
mashallah.
And I sat in a row with other sisters, so I got to know some there, which were really nice and friendly. And I was like, I immediately started to make connections and make new friends.
Oh, cool.
And it was so warm and so welcoming because Malaysians generally are really welcoming people, really friendly. so hospitable and so warm, so you immediately feel like a family member, even though you've just met them, but they offer you food and they invite you to their house and they offer you to stay over, which is not part in my
Mashallah.
culture here. In my culture here, you announce what time you want to come and you better be sure you've gone before the next meal is being served. I think that's a bit harsh, but I'm just paraphrasing here a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I
Whereas
understand
in
that.
like, come in, come stay, like, come move in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
maybe also they were interested also because I was from the West, I was a Revert, and I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
converted. They were more
So,
curious, I
so
guess. So maybe
basically,
I got
there's when they invite you, they're gonna have this goals discussion and goals talk and so forth.
yeah.
Whatever that has, and they also definitely they want to know about, as you mentioned, the West, living in the West, being in the West.
Mm,
What are the things and how what made you actually come to Islam and so forth. That's what we're doing right now. So, um, when you started in Al Kawthar and seeking knowledge, getting more information about Islam, from there, how did you actually uh, move on deeper into understanding Islam as what you are today?
yeah. Well, I got approached by somebody that was hosting the Al Kauthar was actually,
Mm-hmm.
and he was telling me about a new program that they're starting, which is called New Muslim Care. And
Aha,
they
okay.
were looking for someone to run it or to sort of start helping to get this on its feet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I basically got invited to join Mercy Mission Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a staff there. And because this was a religious or Islamic organization, charity organization, everything was basically practiced there according to Quran and Sunnah. So
So
suddenly I
basically,
was
you
like,
can,
from 0 to
yeah.
100, I
Uh-huh.
had to now change 100%. Or what you're wearing, you should change this. It's basically, it was almost a little bit overwhelming at first because I
Okay.
thought, wow, like this is too much, man. Woof, calm down with and there was a chef there. And of course, they lowered it. And I was thinking, did you lose something? Why are you looking at the floor for? Can I help you find something? But he was obviously being respectful, lowering his gaze. But for me,
Oh,
I didn't know that this is what he was doing.
so,
So I sort of started to learn a lot, but it was fast paced. But I guess had I known all these things before I embraced Islam, maybe I wouldn't have done it. So my journey was meant to be this way. Allah put it this way, from slow to you know
subhanallah.
hardcore to like intermediate again, so that I wouldn't be put off because I was
Mm-hmm.
used to a different lifestyle. So of course this was a new challenge for me now.
Uh-huh.
But I met a lot of brothers and sisters there at this organization that have also changed, whether they were born Muslims or not. They have
Yeah, true.
had a lifestyle before and they now changed and we were all in this journey together. So it was
Yeah.
beautiful, really. I mean, we
I
really had a good.
I actually, Alhamdulillah, I'm born from a Muslim family, but 18 before I reached the age of 18, the Islam that I had was just you have to pray 5 times a day. I don't know why that I have to pray 5 times a day, and I don't know exactly why you're fasting in Ramadan because you have to fast because the entire country is fasting. Or the Muslims, if you go to the masjid, you have to fast. And Hajj, if you're able to go for Hajj. So at the age of 18, then I realized the purpose of life. Why am I Muslim? I questioned myself the same thing. So I decided after I watched Dr. Zakir Naik's talk, where he said he embraced Islam at the age of 18, basically submitted to Allah Azza wa Jalla at the age of 18.
Yeah,
And I was the age of 18 listening to that. So I said that, you know what? I'm a Muslim, man. I'm going to do this, man. That's it. I submit myself to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Khalas. Man, 18 years, of course, I regret 18 years of my life. I did nothing. You know,
yeah, you see it.
and that's what
Do it for
actually,
basic purpose, right? We don't
yeah,
live for this world. We do it because
exactly.
we want to achieve Jannah in the hereafter.
Exactly,
So we have to do
exactly.
certain things, and for some certain things are easier to give up than for others. So that's why maybe
Mm-hmm.
some are really good at reading Quran, others are really good at fasting. We all have our own journey, but we should strive to
Yeah,
always
true.
do the best.
The capabilities that we can, practice or do things that can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, okay. Uh, you've basically mentioned about your transformation from intermediate into this and then hardcore and then returning back and so forth. That's a very good, interesting topic. Okay, I want to know more about your, when you became a Muslim. Definitely
Yeah.
of me, or when I learn something new, or when a brother or sister learns something new about Islam and they want to quickly implement things. what are the mistakes that you've actually stepped on while um, when you're moving on from that phase into Islam, and then in between Islam to increasing of knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, one of the mistakes was that I also looked at Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
rather than Quran and Sunnah or the right sources. So
Oh,
just
okay,
because
that's right.
someone's
Yeah,
name is Muhammad or Ahmed or Khadija, whatever,
true.
that is their name. That is not necessarily their identity as a Muslim.
Yeah,
So my name is Jessica. You wouldn't assume that I'm a Muslim until you probably see me. So the thing is, many times Muslims do not portray the true Islam. So
exactly.
that's why I advise everyone that is interested or everyone that wants to know more.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, do speak to a Muslim, but don't get fatwa or religious rulings from them directly, because
Exactly.
maybe their interpretation is wrong.
True.
Maybe for them they're not on this level yet.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said before, when I started changing, I knew now I would have to cover. I had to cover my hair, and I tried putting on the hijab, and I tried to pin it, and it was not really sticking, it was not really holding. So when I crossed the traffic light, I was like looking like this, then car coming, because I didn't want it to fall off. And then I was wearing a tank top with a net cardigan, so you could see everything through there. And then people were looking at me, and I thought they're probably looking like, "MashaAllah, look at her," but maybe they thought, "Astaghfirullah, what's she doing?" And
I think this advice. I think this advice, Sister Jessica, that you're sharing right now with all of us and those who are watching this video and listening to this podcast, uh, you have to go one at a time. And if a brother or sister is learning something, don't go push them with Sahih Bukhari and Muslim right in front of their doors and their mind. Go step by step. Show them the akhlaq of Islam. Show them
yeah,
the way that a Muslim life. Show them the akhlaq of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How he dealt with non-Muslims. He had a Jewish neighbor. How he dealt with all of these people. Even the Muslim
exactly.
people. Exactly. That's how
And I
we
mean,
should ought.
all those rules that people know, like when you think of Islam, all you know is like, polygamy, terrorists,
Ah,
fast.
yeah, all this hijab is an oppression and
I
polygamy.
mean, that's not the main theme of Islam anyway. Like it's Tawheed. It's like
Exactly.
oneness of Allah. There's only one God, and Muhammad is his last prophet.
Yes.
This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught for more than 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no rule, there was no hijab, there was no stop drinking alcohol, whatever. People just had to get this into their hearts, ingrained into their hearts. Believe
Exactly.
in one God, leave the idols. Don't believe in a bird bringing you wealth. Don't believe in a cat with a winking arm making you rich. Don't believe in a clover to give you good luck. Don't believe in all those things, because these are all just creations from either from us or from things that Allah created. But He is the creator. We have to worship Him. He's the one that made us, that gave us eyesight, that gave us all our inner organs that work perfectly together. And if one thing wasn't working, we wouldn't be able to operate. No one can replicate an eye. No one can replicate breast milk the way Allah made it for our children, so it's suitable for them. All those things are just amazing signs. We look outside, and now if I was able, because of the MCO of the lockdown, I was able to see how from like winter, when everything was barren, there were just trees, not a single leaf on them. It looked so dry, it looked so dead, and now it's blooming. Everything is green, it's amazing. It looks so great. And that was in a span of 2 weeks, from dead to alive. And this is Allah. He makes these things, and He's the one that will put us back to life after we have died.
True.
So nature is also being,
Creation.
Allah regulates nature. He does all of
Exactly.
it. So we have to worship Him.
Okay, so before we jump into the pinnacle, the pinnacle of this discussion of this podcast, what is the major, I don't want to say mistake, but what is the major step that you've made in your life that actually had a negative impression or negative impact on maybe to yourself or the family members when you moved or during your transition to Islam? You have the things that maybe the family members would reject, and they say, "Oh God, what have you done?" They're
Yeah, of course. It's because, obviously I got negative feedback at first, because people don't know what Islam is. And
exactly,
they
yeah.
just see the media teaches them. You turn on the TV and you see some terrorists, you see some people with guns, and
It's Muslims again. It's the Muslims
and they
again.
think that this is Islam, but this is not Islam. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Either these people are off the track, or the media obviously changes it in a way that we are all start, believe that this is all some crazy,
Yeah.
extremist religion, when it's not. So Of course, the change of way of life, the way I dressed in particular, was probably something that was most upsetting to my family because, I mean, we used to go out together, even my sister to the clubs, and now she knew I wouldn't go out anymore. So maybe she was hurt that this sort of bond that we had by going out together was no longer there.
Mm.
And for my mom, that I now would be wearing a headscarf, that my clothing would be more loose.
Mm.
Maybe that's something that they didn't like in particular. Maybe
In the
until now, it's
beginning,
something that.
until now.
Well, I suppose they are more accepting now, but it's
Okay.
still sometimes I get a remark here and there. So
So
it's
when
not.
you moved to Malaysia you started working in immersive mission and you pursued your Islam way of life, did you go back to Germany and
I did, yeah, I
inform your
did, but
family
maybe only
members?
about every 6 months. So I wasn't there all the time. So I was pretty free to practice my religion without much
Alhamdulillah.
backlash, should I
Mm.
say, because they weren't there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I came there, I was able to pray. They allowed me. In fact, they even reminded me, "Have you prayed already?"
MashaAllah.
So it's a good thing.
May
I
Allah
mean,
guide all of them. May Allah guide
guide
your
them,
family
yes,
members.
exactly,
Allahumma
because
ameen. And all of
you have
us.
to see beyond just rules and restrictions because that's
Exactly.
not what it's all about.
Yeah.
We submit wholeheartedly. We are happy to submit because we believe in Allah. So we are fine with it. If you just believe it's just rules for no greater purpose, then Ramadan is just hunger. Of course we want to achieve more than that.
Exactly.
That's why we do
So
these things that.
since you talk about Ramadan and you're in Germany, and we know that the hour, I mean, the difference of the hour is you mentioned 16 hours first in the beginning, then
16 to
eight,
18.
and then when it comes to the end of Ramadan, you're gonna fast around 18 hours I mean, 18 hours of fasting in the month of Ramadan. First, I want to say Alhamdulillah. I mean, it is a long hour. I remember when I was in Mecca, we had to fast around like 14 hours, and it was still six. Yeah, I mean around six something. I mean the day started earlier. Fajr day was around like 3 or 4, I believe so, in Mecca. So yeah, we had to, the normal shaitan in ourselves will say, even though shaitan was all of them a chain, so we would say that, man, it's so long. Six, it's still bright. When is the adhan? But that
Yeah,
was an
yeah, yeah.
experience, and we understand, and we show gratification to Allah Azza wa Jal for actually, blessing us in a place, in a country, or in a place that, or in a land that, Alhamdulillah, we're supposed to be grateful to Him that He has granted us this hour, or the hours that we can fast. And some other countries, maybe in Iceland, if I'm not mistaken, I mean 22 hours of fasting or more than that, or some other parts of the
It's
world.
long. But the thing is,
I
like, you could say, like, oh, this is unjust, it's so long for them and so short for others. But then these people again have winter. So maybe
exactly
it's long now and then it's short then. So Allah definitely distributes it fairly, even though it might seem like this to us or to outsiders, like, oh, how can you not drink the whole day? It's a cleansing process. Actually, in fact, it is beneficial, and science has already proven that you will boost your immune system, you will
true.
start to grow more white blood cells and whatnot, right? So I mean,
Hmm.
that's not just the scientific part of it. And the fasting, of course, it's difficult. In fact, everyone enjoys Ramadan. Like, oh, why would
Exactly.
you enjoy fasting? But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice because it's a special month. And only Allah can put all this blessing in a month that no one else can.
The blessing as well that I want to share is that the kitchen will be off in the morning, in the afternoon, only the dinner and also sahur. Kitchen will be
Yeah, yeah.
clean. Basically,
Well,
the
then if everyone fast, now, you see here that won't be the case. So I will obviously have to be surrounded by people eating and
yeah.
drinking. So different.
So tell me about Ramadan. You're in Germany right now. Uh, how basically you're gonna fast there? Your family is with you. Your children are they with you
Yes,
there?
my kid, my husband, unfortunately, he's not. He's in Malaysia, so he can't enter Germany. I can't enter Malaysia. We've been separated for more
Allah.
than the kids on my own. Plus, there's fasting, and then there is the long hours.
You'll be fasting alone in Germany with your family with your children there. Um,
Mm.
is this your first time?
Fasting?
I mean,
No, no,
is this your first
not
time?
my first time fasting. This will
No,
be my
first time
ninth time.
fasting. First time fasting outside of Malaysia,
My
since
first
you're
time outside Malaysia. Yes,
Allahu
the first
Akbar.
time. Uh, among non-Muslims, or rather away from my Muslim family, and the first time for this long. So I'm excited and nervous and anxious to see how it goes, really, because it'll
Allah
be my
bless you
first
with
time.
strength.
I ask Allah to make it easy for me, because
Allahu
there's no
ameen.
one else that can make it easy
Allahu ameen.
except Him. So I make dua that He will give me the strength and the power to just go through this, and to not only prove myself, but also to show to my family members that there
Ameen.
is something possible, and
So-
and there's 2 billion Muslims in the world, and
Yeah.
majority of them, inshallah, will be fasting,
Yeah.
and none of them is complaining of suffering, because many
Exactly.
don't have food for days to eat on end. So what we
True.
do is peanut.
What is your message for your situation right now? You're there going through, will be fasting, inshallah, will be experiencing Ramadan alone with your children there. What is your last message to all of us who's watching this video and listening to this podcast?
My message. Well, obviously, this is a blessed month, right? This is no such thing that you can just postpone and do it another time.
Exactly.
Ramadan comes only once a year. If you get through it, with full taqwa, Allah will forgive you all your sins. You can ask Him for anything, and it's just a little thing something that we have to abstain from, which normally He's made halal for us. I mean, we can eat and drink all day, all night if we want, and this is only 30 days where we abstain from those things, so that we can achieve taqwa, righteousness, and be more conscious of Allah, be more conscious of God. And He is the creator. He's the one that gives us air to breathe. He's the one that provides us with food, with wealth, and we leave those things. And I mean, I could be here alone. No one would know if I eat or drink, but Allah knows. He will see. So
True.
we stay away from these things for His sake. And I also believe that, especially maybe reverts or
Yeah.
new Muslims,
Beginning
That,
to fast, maybe it could be their first Ramadan for them.
if it's difficult for us, maybe being among a non-Muslim family where people are not fasting, or maybe you even have to fast in secret, Allah will reward you so much more. Imagine a Muslim family where everyone's fasting, mashallah, Allah will bless them, but maybe you will get triple, quadruple, you will get so much more because of the challenges that you face.
Exactly.
That maybe the
The
others
effort
would wish
they put.
we have. We want to trade for an easier situation, but we don't even know what we could gain out from this. So even though I'm scared, but I'm also hoping that Allah will reward us and make it
Allahumma
easy
ameen.
for
Allahumma ameen. All
that
of
He will
us.
help me and all the other Muslims around the world,
Ameen.
and that
Ameen.
He guide a lot of people to staying away from food and drink. That is more than not just being hungry and thirsty, because anyone can do that any day of the year.
Exactly. So this is it's an opportunity for you, Sister Jessica, to actually approach your family member, your sisters, your mother, to show the manners of Islam, especially in the beautiful month, and the acts of worship that you and I will be doing will be multiplied by Allah Azza wa Jal, and more than that. So I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant you steadfastness, strength, you and your children, and grant you the highest level of Jannatul Firdaus with your family members, raise your status in this dunya, and as well higher in the akhirah. Ameen. So, brothers and sisters, this is Sister Jessica's story. Alhamdulillah, this is the end. It's a wrap up of the podcast show today. So, brothers and sisters, make sure if you like the video and you love the content of the video, make sure to subscribe, follow, and share the video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Wa
barakatuh.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This podcast is powered by Mu'jiza. And if you like and love the content and the videos that Mu'jiza is making, support us now in this Ramadan at launchgood.com/Mu'jiza.